all of us eagerly anticipating Amazon's The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power TV series, this past year has culminated in a lot of speculating, theorizing, rumoring, and debate without much tangible content to analyze. However, these last few weeks have resolved this issue partly through the multiple Vanity Fair overviews, as well as comments from showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay. In today's video, we will be discussing and breaking down the top 10 biggest official confirmations about this upcoming Amazon series, coming September 2nd. Without further ado, let's get right into it. First up, in at number 10, we have the confirmation of fan-loved characters Celebrimbor and Gil-galad, both pivotal to the story of the Second Age. Vanity Fair confirmed Celebrimbor as being played by Charles Edwards, who we revealed last week, and also Benjamin Walker as Gil-galad, who we also revealed a few weeks ago. However, a key feature not present in the trailer at any time was any hints to rings or the forging of the rings. But rest assured, the fact that we have Charles Edwards, who is in fact Celebrimbor, does suggest that we will get some ring making in this show at some point. In regards to Gil-galad, we specifically saw him in the trailer, looking up to the sky when the meteor went past. In at number 9, we have the issue around continuity with the film trilogy. Even though answered by the showrunners and Vanity Fair, it still raises questions, as it does seem currently different but familiar. The article states, while the series is not a precise continuation of Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings, it shouldn't clash with the cinematic world fans have come to know and love. It was also mentioned that a lot of the main stars look similar to their character counterparts in the Jackson film trilogies, such as Morfydd Clark to Cate Blanchett, and Robert Aramayo to Hugo Weaving, and even Benjamin Walker to Mark Ferguson. However, it's worth noting also that, if only for legal reasons, that this is not the exact same world. The production design, though similar, is not trying to match the Jackson films. A notable comparison to substantiate this claim is through the Narsil sword in the poster we see with Elendil being noticeably different from the Narsil that we see in the Peter Jackson film trilogy. Next up, in at number 8, is the long-feared issue around intimacy and violence, where the possibility of an intimacy coordinator being on set disrupted a lot of the fandom. The exact words from the showrunners are, "So will there be Westerosi levels of violence and sex in Amazon's Middle-earth? In short, no." McKay says the goal was, quote, "to make a show for everyone, for kids who are 11, 12, and 13, even though sometimes they might have to pull the blanket up over their eyes if it's a little too scary. We talked about the tone in Tolkien's books. This is material that is sometimes scary, and sometimes very intense, sometimes quite political, sometimes quite sophisticated, but it's also heartwarming and life-affirming and optimistic. It's about friendship, and it's about brotherhood, and underdogs overcoming great darkness." End quote. So it's safe to say that there won't be overly extravagant scenes of the sexual nature. At number 7, we have Warrior Princess Galadriel, which has sparked a lot of discussion around the characterization of the Elven Queen, in this show and more generally in the time period of the Second Age. Firstly, per Patrick McKay, he states, quote, "She's full of piss and vinegar, and she's got a sword that's broken because she's killed so many orcs. This young, hot-headed Galadriel, how did she ever become that elder stateswoman?" End quote. Vanity Fair backs this militaristic version of Galadriel through Tolkien's 1973 letter, which stated, "She was then of Amazon disposition, and bound up her hair as a crown when taking part in athletic feats. This is how she got her name Galadriel, which means maiden crowned with gleaming hair." A fear that arises from this piss and vinegar-filled Galadriel is that the direction the showrunners are taking will have Galadriel become this next Daenerys, female-empowered character just slashing orcs all day. But this is still only the first season, and maybe in this show we will see the character arc of Galadriel from this warrior princess into the elder stateswoman and angelic being she is in The Lord of the Rings. Nearly halfway there, in at number 6 we have a big one, the rights that Amazon have to tell their Second Age story. Again, from the mouths of the showrunners themselves, they quote, "We have the rights to solely the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, the Return of the King, the Appendices, and the Hobbit, and that is it. We do not have the rights to the Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, The History of Middle-earth, or any of those other books." End quote. Despite this conundrum, McKay still states that as long as we're painting within those lines and not egregiously contradicting something we don't have the rights to, there's a lot of leeway and room to dramatize and tell some of the best stories that Tolkien ever came up with. So they made it clear that they don't have full access to the unfinished tales and the Silmarillion. However, this doesn't remove the fact that Amazon and the Tolkien estate have an agreement whereby some bits from those books can be used on a case-by-case basis, such as the star-pointed shape of the island of Numenor, which is stated only in the unfinished tales and not the appendices. A lot of what McKay says about not egregiously contradicting the source materials mirrors the previous interview by acclaimed Tolkien scholar Thomas Shippey, which was also hinted at in the article that he was let go due to his violation of his NDA. Halfway there, in at number 5 we have the explanation of the dialogue and writing by the showrunners, who went into great depth about their writing strategy for each race. In studying the language from the first 3 episodes Amazon let Vanity Fair screen, we found a mix of cleverly repurposed lines of Tolkien's dialogue, as well as a few snatches of biblical text. "Both Patrick and I have religious backgrounds," Payne says. "I spent a lot of time just reading those sacred texts. I was an English major at Yale and loved Shakespeare at the time, and still go back and reread the various plays. I've also spent a lot of time studying Hebrew poetry and parallelism, and inverted parallelism, and chiasmus, and all these cool rhetorical strategies that poets and prophets from thousands of years ago would use to communicate sacred material. And Tolkien sometimes will play in that kind of sandbox." In regards to the actual characters themselves, they further go on to explain, "The Harfoots speak with an Irish lilt, whereas the Elves speak in elevated British phrases. We even came up with hero meters for each different race in Tolkien," Payne says. "Some of them will speak in iambs, some of them will speak in dactyls, some of them will speak in trochees." Next up, in at number 4, we have the confirmation of Isildur, played by Maxim Baldry, and his role in the show in the first season, described as being a young sailor who one day becomes the warrior who slices the One Ring from Sauron's hand, only to succumb to the artifact's power himself. Also, McKay further states, "You meet Isildur and he's like Michael Corleone," McKay says. "He's the young member of the family who has optimism and immaturity. Trace that guy to the tragic final decision rather than the mistake of a fool. His temptation and his relationship with his father, Elendil, is all part of the final story on the list, The Last Alliance of Elves and Men." The interesting highlight from this character overview by Payne and McKay is the possible politically fractured relationship between Isildur and his father Elendil, and how this develops throughout the first season, with Isildur seeming to be more of a young rogue out for adventure. This family dynamic was referenced in the leaked scripts by Redanian intelligence as well. At number 3, we have the infamous Meteor Man. One of the most controversial and heavily debated features of this Amazon show and the trailer is the presence of the character that fell from the sky. When pressed, the showrunners opened up only slightly, stating that when asked if this might be Gandalf, Radagast, or Saruman, McKay answered cautiously, "Well, I would say those are not the only beings, those names, in that class. So maybe, but maybe not. And the mystery and the journey of it is all the fun, I would say." Furthermore, in regards to this final shot of the teaser trailer, which we have maintained to be the main talking point of the teaser, they mentioned, "What is known for certain is that this mystery man's story connects to the Harfoot character Nori Brandyfoot, Markella Kavanaugh, seen in the Super Bowl teaser." Another quote from the article says, "Powers can be used for good or bad, and Harfoots have rules that you're not supposed to engage with the big folk. Most rules in Middle-earth, however, are made to be broken." End quote. Of course, the 2 wizards not mentioned that the showrunners were alluding to were of course the Blue Wizards, but this doesn't necessarily mean that Meteor Man is therefore a Blue Wizard, but it maintains the point that Meteor Man's storyline will be interlinked with the Hobbit's storyline. Who he truly is will be one of the biggest mysteries of the first season. For the penultimate one, in at number 2, we have the involvement of King Durin III and King Durin IV in the same time period. This Sunday we revealed that Peter Mullen will play King Durin, and Owain Arthur will be playing Prince Durin IV. But this completely overhauls the Durin reincarnation aspect, which the showrunners have clearly indicated that they will have to move to the side and be adapting in a different way. The red-bearded Owain Arthur, photographed in Vanity Fair's deep dive into the Rings of Power, is Prince Durin IV. But Tolkien scholars will cry out, it was Durin III who was given one of the Rings of Power by Sauron. Yes, King Durin III is also in the show, and he's portrayed by someone who knows something about playing a bad dad. In Tolkien's works, Durin III and Durin IV are not father and son, and the title of Durin is more complicated than just a name. But remember that McKay and Payne are compacting thousands of years of Tolkien's Second Age down into one shortened timeline. The explanation around the two Durins interlinks with our number 1 point, which is time compression. The Lord of the Rings of Power has compressed the Second Age down to the Forging and Akalabeth events happening in the same lifetime and period, instead of being a few thousand years apart. For some more direct insight into this major creative choice, the showrunners add, "We talked with the Tolkien estate. If you are true to the exact letter of the law, you are going to be telling a story in which your human characters are dying off every season, because you're jumping 200 years in time. And then you're not meeting really big, important canon characters until Season 4. Look, there might be some fans who want us to do a documentary of Middle-earth, but we're going to tell one story that unites all these things." This exemplifies a clear creative decision to encompass the various historical events in the Second Age into one cohesive, linear narrative, to make the story more accessible to wider audiences and flow more freely. Of course, as mentioned with the Durin reincarnation issue in the previous point, there are some major problems, such as the thematic sense of the longevity of Numenor and seeing its eventual self-inflicted decay into darkness, which would be shortened instead into a few hundred years or only a few lifetimes. Time will tell how this will all pan out. So that's all we have for today. Once again, thank you guys for watching. We really appreciate it. Make sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date with everything Fellowship of Fans, and until next time, Namarie Melonin.